It's your girl, Michelle D.I., Mrs. Divine Intervention herself. To all my helper bees out there, you know who you are. Those that are always helping everyone else and neglecting yourself. Yes, boo, look in the mirror. I'm talking to you. Here to let you know God has not forgotten about you. I've been sent on divine assignment. It's time for reflections, choosing me guilt free. That means 30 minutes for your mind, your body, spirit, and emotions. And don't act like you don't have time. You have time for everyone and everything else. Sit back and relax because if you're here, that means this show is for you or it's for someone you know. But most likely, it's for both of y'all. Deep breaths, love. Let's go. Hey, family. Hey, family. Hey, family. It is your girl, Michelle Allen Franklin. Yes, Mrs. Michelle D.I. Why? You know, boo, for divine intervention, because there are no coincidences in this world, only God's divine intervention in our lives. And Mrs. Community Builder, why? Because you know your girl's going to give you the good information, boo, the things you need for your mind, your body, your spirit, and your emotions. And family, the month of July is gone, y'all. It is Monday, July the 28th, and you are hearing my voice. Your girl is on the radio, and I'm so excited about it. Yes. So, a lot has been happening. A lot has been happening. You know, if you follow your girl, and if you don't, where you been, boo? Look, what you doing? Where you been? Come on along. Come here. Every Monday at 1 o'clock. Come join your girl. And if you miss anything, then you know you can always go to Reflections, CMGF. That is Reflections Choosing Me Guilt Free. Your girl has had a busy summer, and I will be honest and say I was slacking a little bit on getting things set on the podcast channel, but I'm here to tell you today that I have loaded all of the shows, yes, all of the shows are on the podcast channel, up to date, up until today's episode, last week's episode, rather, on the podcast channel. So if you missed anything, you go back and check your girl out. We've been talking since January. I think it was 15 or 16 shows on there. God is amazing. And so, Reflections, CMGF, that is Reflections Choosing Me Guilt Free on YouTube, honey. Check your girl out. So, today, family, we are starting a new series. It is called, your girl be coming up with stuff, y'all. It's called Hot Girl Summer. It's called Hot Girl Summer, the healing season for the wounded and the worthy. Today, fellas, I'm sorry. I'm talking to the ladies today. But y'all can sit in because if you have a daughter, if you have a sister, if you have, you have a mother, right? These words definitely could apply to her today. Um, this is a necessary conversation. I pride myself in having the uncomfortable but necessary conversations that we need to have with who? With you, boo, with yourself. The elephant in the room conversations that you need to have with yourself. And so it is Hot Girl Summer again, the healing season for the wounded and worthy. This is definitely a divine intervention today. And why we must talk about this is because there comes a time, y'all, when I just realized there came a time when I just realized all of the things that I was going through. I keep playing back in my mind the first time after I went to therapy after I was in a domestic violence situation. Right. I will say situation. I was in a domestic violence situation some years ago. And I remember my friend said, girl, you need to go see a therapist that specializes in domestic violence. And I said, really? Okay. And I trusted her. So I went, right? And I'm in the therapy session, and she was saying to me, Is there anything else that you've gone through? And this is, whenever you're listening to my show, I guess I should say trigger warning because I do talk about a lot of trauma. But this is very purposeful because, again, if we don't talk about it, y'all, how are we going to heal from it? And we suffer in silence from it. So, again, I'm sitting in the therapy session and she said, "Have you been through anything else?" And I said, "No, I haven't been through anything else." She said, "Are you sure?" Uh, yeah. Like what? Like what you talking about? Because she kept pressing. She kept pressing, pressing, pressing. And I was like what? And she said, just anything. She said, what else have you gone through? What else is going on? What else has happened in your life? Have you had any other trauma? And I said, no. you know, well, eventually she kept talking and eventually I said, well, I was molested, when I was younger. Um, I told her about the abortion that I had the first time after I had sex at 14 years old because I had a crush on a little boy and I had sex the very first time and I got pregnant and I had an abortion. And that was a very traumatic experience for me. And then I talked about, I said, I had someone that I walked into a house at my best friend's house, had just spoken to, "Hey, Mike, hey, boo, how you doing? Hey, Mike." Walked in the house and boom, 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 boom. Somebody shot Mike and he passed away running into the house. And so the house next door, there was blood all over the steps, and the police came and outlined that mark and outlined his body. And we had to see that every day, at 14, 15 years old. There was a little things, in and out of kind of relationships at that period of point in time that had been maybe emotionally or um, verbally abusive at times or manipulation and different things, but it was different traumas that I had just kind of overlooked in my life. And for me, I didn't think that was a big deal. Your girl grew up in Baltimore. I mean, these things happen. Everybody's gone through it. I know every every woman that I've basically known had been through something. I had to watch my mom endure way more than what I had endured. So for me, that wasn't a big deal. That wasn't nothing to talk about, right? What's the big deal? I'm thinking and I'm saying to this therapist, like, yeah, that stuff happened, but you know, uh, that wasn't a big deal. And I finished talking to her and she said, "Michelle, yeah, that all of that is really a big deal, right?" I've shared this with you guys before. I said that was a big deal. But I remember even after um I lost my virginity. And then I would come down here to Texas for the summer. And so I remember, um, some stares and some whispers and kind of some talks about what was happening and what had happened. And, having that feeling like, I was this fast girl because I made a decision to have sex with this boy that I had a crush on. So now I'm labeled, right? And I remember even in that thinking about my stepfather's, and you think of a father's response, right? Of course, he was angry, he was hurt. So if you can imagine in the moment, he said some stuff to me, made me feel like I had humped every boy on the block. You know what I mean? And so you have this thing that happens, right? When you as a child or, in your young adulthood have made these decisions and things that are happening that make you feel like, you know, something is wrong with you, or all of a sudden you're different, but or you have this stamp on you, right? And so who am I talking to today? Who am I talking to today? Is there anybody out there that can resonate? Does this resonate with you, what I'm saying? If anybody out there felt like, You've been called out, or you've been singled out, or you've been labeled as. So I created this series to not only just speak about this, but speak about, there's danger in the silence of it all, right? Because we don't talk about these things, right? We're living with this shame and this guilt, but we don't talk about these things. So I would say too many of us were called fast when we were really unprotected. We were unhealed when we were unseen. We were sexualized before we even knew what sexuality meant, labeled before we even learned who we were. And of course, those words stuck, right? So let me just be clear: being wounded doesn't make you worthless, because it causes this unworthiness in the belly. Being broken doesn't make you beyond repair. The unworthiness, when I sat up and I thought about it, I talk about subconscious, the way the subconscious guides you and leads you, and you don't even know, right? Why are you doing these things? Why are you responding this way? Why are you acting this way? Why does the behavior show up this way? The subconscious is driving you. There's something that dates way back, right? That's embedded in your subconscious. You may not remember, but your body remembers. There's a book, I wish I could remember the name of the author, but it's called The Body Keeps the Score. Whether you acknowledge it or not. And fellas, I'm talking to the ladies right now, but men have had certain traumas and things that have happened to them. Men have been molested as well. Men have been inappropriately touched as well. Men have been raped as well, right? Men have different things have happened to men as well, right? A lot of boys that have lost their virginity to somebody that was a family member or a neighbor, somebody that was supposed to be watching them, a babysitter, a trusted person, right? I was being watched by a cousin in Baltimore that touched me inappropriately, right? Multiple times. And so all of these things and these little things, but it's not stuff that you talk about. We don't talk about that as a community. But what has it done to your spirit? What did you do with that? You got up and you just kept going. What we do with all of the things, right? We get up and we keep going. But then that behavior shows up. I can remember from the first time, the 13, 14, when my breast started growing. I can remember walking out the house and there was always adult men. There were always men in the city, right? Walking up and down the street, cat calling. I'm 13, 14 years old, and there's grown men, trying to talk to me. That's been like my whole life, as far back as I can remember, right? 13, 14 years old. Imagine that. And some girls fell for that, right? Because they didn't have the attention of their fathers. They didn't have. So to have that attention and somebody saying that they love you, they care about you, they're giving you all these things, those guys would buy. I mean, some of my friends, you know, were messing with some of these guys because they talked a really great game. But when you go back and look at it, those girls were considered the fast girls, right? But were they fast? Were they fast? Why were they responding from that attention? And this really is not, these conversations are not about blame, right? It's not about, because a lot of times the parents are working, you know, that generation, honey, my parents' generation, y'all didn't know, right? You didn't know working all those long hours, you're leaving your children home alone. You're trying to provide a stable home. So you didn't know the repercussions, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like the conversation need to be had. So this is for the girl who had to grow up too fast, for the women who still carry that shame, for the mothers who don't know how to explain what happened, For the church girl who was told to pray but never taught how to process. Let me say that again for the people in the back, because us church folk, honey, we just gonna pray it away. For the church girl who was told to pray but never taught how to process. Pastors, I need you to pay attention to it, because we will say pray about it in a heartbeat, and we'll go up to the altar. But then you're wondering why people are still, there's no deliverance, right? There's no healing, because that person may go up to the altar and you may pray and you may be with all your might and power thinking you're going to release that thing, but then you still go home with this feeling, right? You still go home with this guilt and this shame. And so understand that I'm not here to fix you. I can't fix it for you. But what I can do is I'm here to just remind you of who you are beneath all of that and what you survived, because you are a survivor. And what I realized is that I'm a survivor of not only one thing, but so many multiple things. I shared with you guys before, when I was diagnosed with PTSD, I thought, Lord, I haven't been in a service. What they talking about? That's not even, I came up here to be tested for something completely different and came out with this diagnosis. What is happening? I thought the lady was crazy. I thought, no, that's no way. But as I've shared and I share my journey, and as I look back over my life, and as I take the time to heal and deal with these things, I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is the healing season. God has not forgotten about you, and God's not scared of your past. So neither should you be. And he definitely does plan to redeem it, honey. God's divine intervention in our lives is real. I know you said I was listening to the radio. I just want to hear some songs and move on and all of the things. And I know you do, boo, because this is uncomfortable. But at the same time, if you're listening, if you're hearing this, it is not happenstance. God's divine intervention in our lives is real. He's very intentional. He's very strategic. And so if you're hearing this, if it's not you, as I've said in the introduction, maybe it's for someone that you know, but at the end of the day, I do believe that it is for both of y'all. So, what if the world never saw your wounds and only your walk? What if the labels that stuck to you weren't yours to carry? Because everything that has happened to us, has it happened to us or has it happened for us? I believe that everything in true Romans 8 and 28 fashion, all things are working together, the good, the bad, and the crazy. And so that label fast, most of us weren't moving too quickly. We were running from something: unsafe homes, sexual trauma, shame we didn't choose, and a desperate need for love and protection. There's a wonderful doctor. He talks about trauma and breaks it down really nicely. His name is Dr. Gabor Mate. He says trauma is not what happens to you, but what happens inside of you as a result of what happened. Let me say that again. Trauma is not what happens to you, but what happens inside of you as a result of what happened. So when you hear people say, because we hold things in, and you're developing, cancers, you're developing high blood pressure, you're developing, I talk about this all the time because this is evidence based. This is not just fluff, y'all. This is evidence based. You think about people, think about yourself. If you've had cancer, if you have any kind of cyst, any kind of growth in your body, any high blood pressure, right? Any irritable bowel syndrome, any reflux, any inflammation, any swelling, anything going on with your heart, And think about over your life how much you have held in. Where do you think all of that is residing that you haven't talked about? Okay. It's residing inside of your body and it's showing up in that way. And so, girls labeled fast are often coping with early sexual abuse or exposure, parental neglect or abandonment, hypersexuality due to adultification of Black and brown girls, or the nervous system stuck in survival mode, whether it's freeze, fawn, or to perform. We talked about freeze a couple of weeks ago. I think the second week in July, we went into freeze because that is the most common one where you want to do something. You're trying to figure out, man, I have all these plans. God has given me a vision. Why can't I act on them? And you're stuck in this freeze response. I noticed that was one of the things that I suffered from when God has given me all of this vision, all of these things. And I was like, man, why can't I do this? I really want to do this. Right. And I go back and I went to figure it out. And as I studied, I noticed that is my trauma response is freeze. That is a lot of people's trauma response is to freeze. You want to do it and you figure, why can't I do it? Isaiah 54:14. This is the New International Version. It says, do not be afraid. You will not be put to shame. Do not fear disgrace. You will not be humiliated. You will forget the shame of your youth. So, what I want us to do is, I want you just to take a minute to reflect. What would it feel like to believe that God isn't ashamed of you, even if you've been shamed by others? And most importantly, even if you've been ashamed by yourself? Because that self shame, oh my goodness, is the worst. And it's a very uncomfortable thing, right, to talk about. But if you hear all of the negative self talk, they say that your mind is going 1,000 miles a minute. And so there's so many thousands of thoughts that are just going each and every day, positive and negative. And most people have way more negative thoughts than anything, right? You think of something you want to do. What are you trying to do that for? You can't do that. You don't know how to do that. Why are you trying to do that? You want to go back to school? Well, you ain't been to school in years. Why are you trying to go back to school? What you trying to do that for? You know you're gonna fail. What you want a husband, girl? Bye. Don't anybody gonna marry you. Look at you. What you think you are? What you want a wife? What you mean you want a wife? What you been doing? Look at you. Who are you? Right? The unworthiness is loud like a bullhorn sometimes. You hear that way louder than you hear the positive things, right? It might be one positive and 100,000 negative thoughts. And what do we focus on? The negative. When I first started this healing journey some years ago, very intentional healing journey in 2017, one of the guys in the fasting group that I joined, my very first fasting group, was talked about Louise Hay. She has a book called Mirror Work. It is the best little $12.99 you ever want to spend. It's on Amazon. Um, it's a hard look at yourself, but it also gives you affirmations. But it is a 21-day healing modality that you can use in order just for yourself, right? Louise Hay, Hay, just Louise, Louise, Louise Hay. It's called Mirror Work. This is some examples of some of the things you do. Now, the very first exercise in mirror work, it was very funny the first time I did this because I thought this lady is crazy. And so, just complete transparency, I was like, what? This lady crazy. So, the first exercise was to go in the mirror and look yourself in the eyes. Look yourself in the eyes and you say these affirmations, right? And I'm thinking, man, this is about the stupidest thing. But at that period of time, I had said to the Lord, Lord, whatever you lead me and whatever you have me to do, I'm going to do it. And so that's how disgusted with myself I was at that period of point in time. I said, Lord, wherever you lead me. Because how many of you know, because we listen, we go to church, we do all the things, but we are suffering in silence. And so as you suffer in silence and you get to a point of complacency and you get tired, just sick and tired of yourself, right? You don't need anyone else to say it. You know, that's where I was, sick and tired. And so here I am doing this exercise because I'm like, Lord, something has got to be better than what I've been doing. How many of us have heard the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? And so I said, Lord, I'm just going to do something different. Why not try something different? So Louise Hay mirror work, look in the mirror. I was never too grown. I was unprotected. Mm-hmm. I was never too grown. I was unprotected. I forgive the girl I had to become too soon. I forgive the girl that I had to become too soon. Yeah. Shame does not define me. My healing does. Shame does not define me. My healing does. And the last one, I am reclaiming my body, my truth, and my worth. And I want you to just take a minute, get a journal, write your own. It doesn't matter. Take a piece of paper, whatever it is, and write your own affirmations for that speak to you for your journey. As you write, I want you to think about these 5 questions. What were you taught about your body growing up? What were you taught about your body growing up? Number 2, when was the first time you felt ashamed of your femininity or your appearance? Number 3 is, what message did you receive directly or indirectly about your worth? Me going to get that abortion and that doctor talking crazy to me because it hurt, right? The first time that I went to have the abortion, I couldn't do it. It hurt. I had my legs open. He was down there, ladies in the stirrups. It was down there, and I was closing my legs. I couldn't keep my legs open. He said, "You had sex, didn't you?" I'm 14 years old. "You had sex, didn't you? You done this before. You closing your legs. Your legs were open before." A doctor, right? Talking to me like this as a 14-year-old girl. What message did you receive directly or indirectly about your word? I did not know the unworthiness was being birthed that day, but it was. Number 4, what do you wish someone had said to you during that time? What do you wish someone had said to you during that time? What I say to myself now was that you were a child. You had a crush on a boy. You made a mistake. It wasn't the best decision to make, right? I know that I knew better, and I did know better. Not only did I have my father, my stepfather, my mother, I had parents that loved me, and I still made a mistake. I was a teenager. What teenager doesn't make mistakes? So how do you want to speak to that younger version of yourself? I'm going to close with this prayer. Father, I lay down the labels and lies I've been carrying. I release the shame that didn't belong to me. Heal the parts of me that were sexualized before they were seen, touched before they were loved, ignored when they needed safety. I renounce every lie that says I'm not worthy of honor, purity, or restoration. Rewrite my story, Lord. Restore my name. Let your love be louder than the shame. In Jesus' name, amen. Divine intervention. Thank you for tuning in to Reflections Choosing Me Guilt Free with your girl, Miss Michelle D.I. Every week, we will have the uncomfortable but necessary conversations as it relates to your mind, your body, your spirit, and emotions. You suffered long enough. It's time to break free. So join me every Monday at 1 p.m. right here on KGLD Radio, where you can fill your spirit with gospel all day long. See you next week.